Tonight's program of the Opportunity Zones Meetup is going to be on the topic of specialty tax considerations. Sean, who's here with us tonight, is going to be our guest speaker and talk about his knowledge and share with us a number of things that may be done to complement, amplify, extend, or greater focus an Opportunity Zone project. And we'll talk about that in a lot more in the second segment of tonight's program. But to move right on into tonight's program, my name is Karl Dakin. I am the host of Opportunity Zones Meetup. I wear many hats. One of the hats I wear is as a capital coach for Dakin Capital, LLC. I spend a good portion of my time working with different groups trying to raise capital from different sources, helping them design, develop their capital campaigns, and then manage those campaigns. And at the current time, I'm working with several businesses who are raising these for Opportunity Zone businesses, as well as working with different funds. So with that, one of the projects I'm with, Net Zero Colorado, is working to do a 50-acre mixed-use development in Fort Collins, Colorado, called the Sugar Beet District Project. This is in the one of two opportunity zones within the city of Fort Collins, Colorado. And we are currently working with landowners to place land under contract, at which time we'll start the first of several different Opportunity Zone funds, both for the general development of the project as well as for the tenants who will participate and reside in the project once we get to final stage construction. In addition to that, one of the other projects I'm working with, which is all now also acting as a sponsor, is INM OzFund 2020 in New Mexico. This is a fund that has just launched, working to raise $25 million from accredited investors that will be invested solely in New Mexico businesses, small businesses. And this project is just getting underway. They've already identified a number of businesses, and there's a lot more lining up. We're being approached by people who are also looking to take advantage of Opportunity Zone funding, either as support, as a syndicate partner where we may provide matching funds, or to assist the underlying businesses in doing their own capital raises, where we may come in and match their money during this time. So we also have opportunities for other people who are interested in becoming sponsors for this event. We are in the process of upgrading our relationship with Meetup to become a pro version subscriber, which will allow us to create multiple sites across the United States, all under the Opportunity Zones banner. So if anybody in another city is watching this video, is interested in setting up a program like this in your own backyard, please reach out to me and I'll be happy to talk to you about making that happen. So that brings us to part one of tonight's program, and I'm going to continue through because we're behind schedule. So we're going to talk about different things that can be done with Opportunity Zones. And I'm going to talk about this from the perspective of enhancements. Right now, an Opportunity Zone business or property may look to a fund, may create their own fund, but they're out raising capital. And as I've described in this program and to other people, the benefit of an Opportunity Zone tax incentive has its own limits. And we've talked about this in the context of real estate, that they talk about adding maybe as much as 4 to 5 points of ROI. So if you were predicting that you, before taxes, were going to make 8%, and ordinarily you would end up giving up some of those profits to taxes, this would actually result in a net ROI of 12%. So you go home with more money because you're not giving up a big chunk of it to the government agencies that do the taxation. If you're working with a small business, one that has a potential to go to the moon, high volume multiplier. There is actually going to be a greater potential for tax incentives because all the upside appreciation would not be taxable at the end of the 10-year term. That being said, either the risk of investing in a small business or the limited profitability that you might experience in an Opportunity Zone property project may not be enough to cause someone to take their capital gains and redirect them into your particular project. So we've been looking at a variety of things, which is going to be the main target of tonight's program, which are especially tax considerations. But we've been looking at all kinds of things that can give an investor a greater incentive that would allow somebody who's seeking to raise money another thing to put on the table to attract that money to come into their fund. And that may be something that either reduce risk, it may improve the yield or the ROI on the project. It may create secondary benefits by addressing problems within the community. And this has been where our work has been for most of the summer, is saying, yeah, now that we're starting to get our arms around opportunity zones, and as good as they are, what can we do to make them better? What can we do to make it more attractive to investors? What can we do to drive more money into the economically distressed communities which make up opportunity zones so that they have a better chance to turn themselves around, to catch up with the other communities and potentially get ahead. So we're looking at that. One of the ones we've been talking about is innovation. It's my position that if you're going to do a real estate project of any scale, that you should consider embedding innovation into the project in some manner to try to drive the local economy, to try to create a higher value for the property at the end of the 10-year term, and do the best you can to influence the outcome, to influence market prices within that marketplace at the end of 10 years so that your investors have a higher chance of success and a higher ROI potential. So we've looked at doing innovation hubs, which is kind of a hybrid between a single business and multiple businesses, and then also a hybrid between a property investment and a single business investment. And the idea is if you create the right type of infrastructure in a hub, you can support multiple businesses. You can invest in a portion of all those businesses and get the appreciation from that with some diffusion or mellowing, so to speak, of your risk profile. But at the same time, you're investing in the underlying property, which has the benefits of a property investment. So this is something that is being kicked around. There's different people who are doing this using different names in other communities. I just was at the Innovation Center down in Pueblo last week for a food summit, and they have a old building down on the river which they've converted into an innovation center, and they're doing all kinds of cool and great things down there, which are all contributing to the Pueblo economy. And we see that this is something that can be replicated in many communities across the United States, and we encourage it as something to look at. Another thing we've looked at is workforce housing. Everywhere we've gone, there is a need for housing, typically on the lower income scale, and this is particularly true in opportunity zones where they're already in the lowest income status amongst all the census tracts. So what can we do to create the housing? We've proposed one approach, which is to have employers participate in the housing project, get involved by one, agreeing to rent the property to their employees, two, offering to buy the property at the end of the 10-year term to give the investors in the opportunity zone a guaranteed cash exit, having the employer guarantee any commercial mortgage that might be used to construct or revitalize the property, and then at the end of the day, taking that same property and moving the employees from a rental to an ownership status so that they can engage in their own wealth building as part of an employee benefit program. We are talking with several people about this right now. We had a project presented to us as an opportunity a couple weeks ago down in the Permian Basin in New Mexico, where there's a shortage of workers and a shortage of housing and a shortage of infrastructure. So we're going to be looking at trying to address the infrastructure issue with a concept we're now calling a sudden city. And we're going to weave together a number of technologies where we may be able to pop up a city that is in a net zero status with all the utilities that you'd find in any rural community. And this would also potentially serve in a disaster relief or a rural community revitalization. So there's a bunch of discussion going on that. One of the other things that we've discussed is combining opportunity zones with insurance banking. This is taking money that would go into an opportunity zone fund and either before putting it into the fund or after investing it into an opportunity zone business. That money is borrowed from a life insurance, a whole life insurance program, and then paid back through the ongoing operations of the opportunity zone business. The benefit of this is that you are having wealth building in two places tax-free at the same time, one within the insurance policy and one within the opportunity zone business or property. And in addition to that, as a major new benefit, is there's a death benefit in the event of the death of the insured that is huge compared to the dollar amount that's at risk. So this was the item that I presented at the Colorado Opportunity Zone Conference last week, working with Unbridled Wealth, a wealth manager and insurance broker here in Denver. We presented a case study on the acquisition of the Florence High School, which will be retrofitted into a commercial center in Florence, Colorado. Florence, for those of you who are not familiar, is a small community, 4,000 people, located between Pueblo and Canyon City. And it, like a lot of rural communities, struggles to find an anchor or a center point for building an economic base. And hopefully the retrofit of this school will contribute to that for the Florence community. But we have a lot of interest in this being almost standardized into Opportunity Zone projects because of the benefits that it creates outside of the Opportunity Zone in addition to the standard ROI. Lastly, one of the things we've been looking at is skills training. In this regard, we have been looking at the possibility of creating an Opportunity Zone fund. That fund would advance the cost of development of educational programs for a particular industry, and it would do that on a job-by-job position with the intent of skill mapping every job within a company and then providing skills in bundles for each job position. And the investors in the Opportunity Zone would be paid back out of a share of income received by the worker who receives the training. So it brings into alignment the worker, the employee, education and financing. And again, we're looking to test this in some different industries who are very short-handed right now due to technical advances. So this covers the different type of enhancements we've been working on so far. We're going to talk some more about opportunity zones and the state of opportunity zones in the next segment of tonight's program. And then Sean is going to show us yet some more tools to put in the tool bag that can help us frame, design, and implement opportunity zone projects along the way. So that brings me to the end of this segment of tonight's program. Again, for those of you who may not be that familiar with opportunity zones, this is legislation passed in 2017. It created an incentive for people who are selling off capital assets and recognizing capital gains to point those capital gains into a new investment within a geographic area that's been designated by each of the states and the territories of the United States. If you make an investment today, it allows you to defer your capital gains taxes that you would otherwise pay next year in 2020 forward to 2026. If you leave it in for 7 years, You get a reduction in that tax by 10%, meaning you'd only pay 90 cents on the dollar for every tax liability dollar owed. And if it's the full 7 years, you get a 15% reduction, or 85 cents on the dollar. The big winner in this, though, is that if you leave your investment in for 10 years, any gain, any appreciation on that new investment is tax-free. And that's where most people are focused. You can take advantage of this in the short term just for tax deferral and some reduction of taxes. But the big benefit from this is to put it into a community and let it work for 10 years, where it can do a lot to turn that community around. And if you leave it in for the 10 years, then whatever profit you would otherwise be taxed on is non-taxable. So that brings us to the end of this segment. Thank you.